Okay, let's start with the food safety introduction first. Food safety actually is the assurance that is given that the food will not cause any harm to the consumer when it is prepared or eaten according to its intended use. Okay, the very important phrase here is according to its intended use. Also, food safety is the most critically important component of food quality. A product may look very good in appearance, it may be well colored, it may look very appetizing, may be very flavorful, but it may not be safe to eat because it may be contaminated with some undetected pathogenic microorganisms. At the same time, the food may not look that appealing, but it may be safe to eat. So here the idea is to tell you that food quality and food safety are two different issues, although food safety normally falls under food quality. Okay, you can compromise with the food quality, but you cannot negotiate with the food safety issues. Okay, and one of the most important pillar to achieve food safety is to practice food hygiene. Okay, now we will move to why we put so much emphasis on food safety. So what are the aims of food safety? Of course, the major aim of food safety is to stop people getting sick from eating contaminated food. Another aim is to delay the food spoilage. So here there are two issues. One is food is being spoiled, that leads to the food wastage. Another is food leads to the foodborne illnesses that causes diseases. Okay, spoiled food may not cause the diseases, right? Okay, so here when you talk about food safety, we talk about the food spoilage. At the same time, we talk about the foodborne illnesses. So we don't want any of these, right? Although foodborne illnesses are more critical of a concern. And of course, when we take care of our food safety issues, we produce high quality food at all the stages of food production. Okay, so what are the hazards in food safety? What can make our food unsafe? Okay, there can be various reasons that make our food unsafe. We broadly classify food hazards into three categories: physical hazards, chemical hazards, and biological hazards. Can you see the difference between these three types of hazards? Okay, which one do you think is the most critical of these three? Okay, there's no answer to that. Anyone can be critical. Okay, but the point to note is most of the foodborne illnesses, they are actually caused by the biological hazards. Although physical and chemical hazards, they also can pose severe health issues. Okay, hazards, in other words, we can call them dangers that are associated with food. Okay, so physical hazards may be a piece of glass or a piece of metal or plastic that may be introduced accidentally during the harvesting of the crop, or maybe during the processing of the food at any food handling stage. Okay, actually, historically, there have been reports where even whole rats have been found into the food. This is also a physical hazard. Okay. Similarly, there can be chemical hazards. These chemical hazards can be natural or these can be accidental. One of the example of the natural chemical hazard is the toxins present in mushrooms. Okay. The accidental may be the seepage of insecticides or herbicides or fungicides through the soil to the crops. Okay. There are many more examples of the chemical hazards and the physical hazards. So we have to be very mindful when we are working in the food processing environment or any food handling business. Okay. Of course, there are biological hazards, as we have mentioned before, and these biological hazards are responsible for the foodborne illnesses. Okay. Biological hazards include the presence, it includes the presence or growth of, okay, it's either presence or growth of undesirable bacteria, fungi, and viruses. I don't know how many of these terms are new to you, but we will talk a little bit on bacteria in detail in this presentation. I will show you some of the fungal growth on the food, and virus we all know is the coronavirus these days, but keep in mind this is not the one that causes the foodborne illness. Okay, we will be talking about that in our later slides. And another point to note is it's mainly the bacteria that are responsible for foodborne illnesses. So we will be talking about some of these culprits that causes the illnesses in human in our later part of this presentation. Okay, so yeah, just a test for you, or just want to see whether we can identify this hazard. So this is a strawberry, okay, nice, red and juicy, but still doesn't look so nice. I don't think we will buy this kind of product from the supermarket. Can you identify what kind of hazard is that? C. Yes, you all are right. This is biological hazard. What is this? Is it bacteria or fungus? This is a fungus. This is called gray mold. This is a very big cause of the strawberry wastage in the whole world. Okay, this is the only mold that can affect the strawberry, and a lot of produce has to be thrown away because of this mold. Okay, so this is an example of the fungus that loves to grow under moist and humid conditions. Now, let's move to, what is this? These are the examples of bacteria. Okay, these are some of the common bacteria which are responsible for causing illnesses. So what are bacteria? Bacteria are microscopic organisms that are found everywhere practically. They are found on the food, in the food. Okay, so you can find it on the surface of the food. You can find within the food matrix. You can find bacteria in water, in soil, even on us, on animals, everywhere you say it, bacteria are there. Okay, but the good thing is most bacteria are very harmless. Okay, most of the bacteria are harmless. In fact, some of them are very useful to us. For example, we need to make yogurt, or we need to make some other nice food such as cheese. Okay, so these are very helpful to us. However, there are a small number of bacteria that cause food spoilage. Okay, so food spoilage, it comes under food, safe food also. But although it may not be disease causing food. Okay, so some number of bacteria, they may cause the spoilage of the food, and some small number of bacteria may cause diseases. Okay, either in animals, in plants, or in humans. The disease causing bacteria are called pathogens. So we have been using the term pathogenic microorganisms. What are pathogens? These are the bacteria, or these are the microorganisms in general that are disease causing. Okay, so it is therefore really important that you don't have any conditions that would allow these spoilage microorganisms or pathogens to multiply to a level where they could cause food poisoning. Okay, presence of microorganism or presence of a pathogen doesn't mean you will get the food poisoning. Okay, there should be certain number of those pathogens in your food. So you have to maintain the conditions of the food in a way that food poisoning does not happen. Okay, so these pathogens are responsible for foodborne illnesses, and we will talk about some of these pathogens later. Okay. Okay, so as we have mentioned, most of the foodborne diseases, they are caused by bacteria. Okay, and WHO defines a foodborne disease as any disease of an infectious or toxic nature which is caused by or thought to be caused by the consumption of food or water. So water actually it is included in the foodborne diseases definition. And we have already stated that the microorganisms that cause illness in humans, animals, or plants are known as pathogens. So there are two types of microorganisms. One are spoilage microorganisms, which spoil the food but may not cause the disease. And other are pathogens, which are disease-causing microorganisms. Okay, let's go through these microorganisms. So as we have mentioned, these four, you can see four bacteria names on your screen: Campylobacter, Salmonella, Listeria, monocytogenes. Okay, don't be get intimidated by the names. Okay, so E. coli in short, we all know, right? So you can just say Listeria, E. coli. Salmonella, we all are aware of. Okay, so what I have done here is I have divided these four pathogens into two categories. One is champions and another is deadly companions or deadly champions. Champions means they are champion in causing highest number of diseases worldwide. So that means the infectious rate due to these two microorganisms is very high. Okay, deadly means the infection rate may not be so high, but the mortality rate is very high due to Listeria and E. coli. Okay, so we will go through these four one by one very briefly. So this is a situation of Campylobacter in Singapore. This data is from year 1991 to 2015. This is the one I managed to find. Couldn't find the more recent numbers. Okay, and what we see is like from 2009 onwards there have been increase in the number of cases in Campylobacter infections, and these have been consistent throughout the years, right, in the range of about 300 to 400. So every year we see the Campylobacter infections. And it's important to note that Campylobacter has been reported to found both in imported and locally produced poultry. Okay, so it's not just imported or locally. So it has been found on all the poultry products. It has also been found not just on the poultry that is stored at the room temperature, but also the poultry that is stored under the chilled conditions. Okay, and in recent years, Campylobacter has been also been reported to found on chilled whole ducks. So that means it's still there under the chilled conditions, right? It can survive the chilled conditions. It may not grow under the chilled conditions, but it can survive under the chilled conditions. Okay, let's have a look at the Campylobacter characteristics. Its ideal growth temperature is 42 degrees centigrade. It cannot grow below 30 degrees centigrade, but it can survive, as we mentioned previously. It is very sensitive to dry environment, so that means it needs water. It is very sensitive to salty conditions and acidic conditions also, right? And it can be inactivated under high temperature conditions. So by looking at the conditions of the survival of this bacteria, you can actually decide what are the good product conditions for you to avoid the contamination with this bacteria. Okay, so the most common source of transmission is undercooked poultry, and the symptoms of infection include diarrhea, abdominal cramps, nausea, and fever. So basically, these are the flu-like symptoms that are caused by Campylobacter. And most of the times, it's very hard to differentiate the symptoms caused by Campylobacter with the symptoms caused by Salmonella and some other pathogenic microorganisms. Okay, give you an example of the outbreak of the Campylobacter. Okay, this happened in 2003 in Spain in a school. 81 cases were reported. All were school children. So the children are very vulnerable to this infection. Out of 81, 31 had to visit the doctor. There was no fatality, and the food source was found to be custard. Okay, and the reason for outbreak was milk used to make custard was cross-contaminated from the raw chicken, okay, which was used to make a component of that particular product of the custard on a day before the meal was served. And on top of that, this custard was stored at room temperature. Poor hygienic practices in kitchen were followed, and inadequate food safety training was there. Okay, so another thing maybe I would like to emphasize here is the food safety training. Your employees should be thoroughly trained on the food safety. Okay, training is a very important component to maintain or to produce safe food from your premises. Okay, coming to number two, which is salmonella. I guess we all have heard this name, right? Especially, maybe I'll show you this slide. Maybe spice. We all should be familiar with this, right? Spice. A lot of news came in a few years ago. Okay, I'll come back to this later. So if we look at the salmonella situation in Singapore, you can see that this data is from 2015 and 2016, and there have been consistency in the number of cases throughout the years, right? Although there is a sharp increase, or there's sharp increase in between, but there is a consistent number of cases throughout the year. Okay, let's have a look at the characteristics of salmonella. It is found in the intestines of wild and domestic animals and birds, such as poultry. It can grow at room temperature, but the ideal temperature is 37 degrees centigrade. It doesn't mind whether it has air or not. Cannot grow at very low or very high temperatures. It can be easily inactivated by heat. So what you have been seeing here is most of these pathogens, they can be inactivated by heat. So heat treatment can be one of the ways to inactivate these. Okay, again, the source is undercooked poultry, and on top of that, fatty foods such as chocolates. All right. Okay, so this is a salmonella outbreak that happened in Singapore. Okay, just let me see the reference. Okay, so here some peaches were imported from United States, and these peaches were recalled because of the potential salmonella, because of the potential of the salmonella outbreak, okay, in the US. So we all familiar, I guess, with this one, spice, what happened there. This outbreak happened in 2018, okay, where alarming lapses in the food hygiene in this restaurant were found. And actually this caused the death of one person, and other 46, they were hospitalized. And strains of salmonella were found on the ready-to-eat bento sets. They were even found on some food contact surfaces, such as the door handles and the knobs. Okay, and again, the issue was the poor training. The staff was not trained on the food handling practices. All right. So, what is the take-home message for us from these two pathogens? We know that now we know that raw poultry is one of the most important source of contamination. All raw poultry products and their packages must be treated as contaminated. Even the packages that are used to pack the poultry products, they have been found to be contaminated with these bacteria, especially Campylobacter. Okay, and also we know now that Campylobacter and Salmonella are transferred readily from chicken to surfaces such as hands, chopping boards, and other foods, which again emphasize the need of food hygiene practices. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, maybe just a quick check here. If you handle raw chicken, what would you do it before cooking? What do you think is the best practice to handle raw chicken? Do you wash it or you do not wash it? No more responses? Okay, everyone is washing it. If you're washing it, you will be surprised to know that it is a very bad idea to wash raw chicken before cooking. Okay. It's a very common misconception among the professional chefs and equally among the home cooks that it is necessary to wash chicken or the chicken portions prior to cooking. Washing chicken actually is not effective in removing the bacteria. It actually helps to spread Salmonella and Campylobacter on work surfaces. Okay, so when you wash it, there's a potential of spreading bacteria, especially these Campylobacter and Salmonella, up to 1 meter away from the food source. Okay, so maybe next time when you consider washing the chicken before cooking, please give a second thought. Okay, the more important thing is to cook the chicken properly. Okay, at the recommended temperature for the recommended amount of time. So reaching the temperature is also just not enough. You have to keep the time consideration also in mind. Okay, so next time when you wash chicken, please give a second thought to it. Okay, then coming to our deadly bacteria, we start with listeria. Okay, I couldn't actually find any data from Singapore. So this is from the different countries. Here, what I would like to show you is the mortality rate. Okay, mortality rate is quite high in the range of 17 to 44%. Okay, so it is very high in number. That's why we call it a deadly microorganism. Okay, so what are the characteristics of listeria? So why we say listeria monocytogenes? Because this monocytogene species of listeria is responsible for foodborne illnesses. That's why we had to specify this microorganism name. Okay, it can be found everywhere. Okay, this species is oftenly associated with human illness. Okay, it is a very sturdy microorganism. It can grow at low temperature. That's why if you are dealing with the chilled foods, this is a major pathogenic microorganism that you have to be concerned about. Okay, under the chilled conditions. Most of the other microorganisms you can control under chilled conditions, but this one still grow under the chilled environment. And similarly to your Campylobacter and Salmonella, it also produces flu-like symptoms. Okay, so this is the outbreak that happened in Singapore, which I need to find the reference. Okay, this outbreak was reported in March 2018. So I guess you can identify the product. This is rock melon. Okay, and these rock melons, they were imported from Australia, and later the importer of these rock melons, he came to know that there is an outbreak of listeria in Australia in the rock melons. Okay, so the product was recalled by then ABA, which is Agri and Veterinary Authority, but now everything falls under SFA, right? Okay. Let's move to the next slide, which is our last pathogenic microorganism for today's discussion. This is E. coli. I guess again, it's very popular. Okay, everyone should have heard this name here or there. This is also called as an indicator organism. Why it is called indicator is because it is relatively easier to detect in laboratory, and if you find E. coli in your food or water sample, that means there are possible chances of fecal contamination. Okay, so if E. coli is there, it indicates the poor hygiene practices that are used to prepare the food. Okay, good thing is it is sensitive to heat, so you can inactivate it under high temperature conditions, but the bad thing is it produces potent toxins that can make you sick. Okay, so if the infection is there, it can even cause very severe symptoms, such as a person can develop hemolytic uremic syndrome, which is actually an illness of kidneys and even can lead to the death of the infected person. Yeah, so good hygiene practices really can save people, okay, if you're dealing with food. This is the outbreak of E. coli. We don't really call it outbreak, but yes, some of the case that happened related to E. coli in Singapore. News from 2018, and some of the romaine lettuce, which was imported from the US, it was advised to be thrown away by then AVA. as they released the statement that it could be potentially contaminated with E. coli, because at the same time E. coli outbreak happened in the US from where this product was sourced. Okay, so we see everyday cases which are related to foodborne illnesses. It's not something that happens really. Okay, so how to control all this? Are there any control strategies that we can use to avoid such mishappenings in our food manufacturing or food handling facilities? To answer all these questions, we have to actually know many things in detail. It's not a straightforward answer, or I shall say it's not one answer for all the products. Each product is different. Each product has different food metrics. Uh, each product is susceptible to different pathogens. Okay, different products are produced under different processing conditions, right? Even the ingredients of different products are different, which can actually lead to different environmental conditions for the growth of these microorganisms. So to answer this, you really need to go through details, okay, how to control these microorganisms. Along with that, yes, of course, we always can practice good hygiene practices, okay. You can think of considering food safety management systems, okay. Application of this can give you a big confidence in producing safe food. And finally, when you know everything until how long your food is safe, how to determine the safety of food, then finally you have to determine what is the shelf life of the food, and you have to make sure until the consumer consumes the food, right? The shelf life that you put on the food, it gives a high confidence that the food will be safe until that point of time. So a lot of questions are there to address if you have to control these foodborne illnesses, and a lot of answers are also available, but knowing the details of your product, the details of all the conditions. But one thing that is common is the food hygiene practices that you all can practice if you're in this business. And I will leave you with some examples of these good practices, such as frequent hand washing, which we have been doing these days, temperature monitoring. Not just temperature monitoring, you have to monitor the temperature for the time that you make sure that the food is safe to consume. And also, it's a very good practice to monitor your cold room temperatures and the refrigeration temperatures. Okay, so yeah, so these are just few examples. There are plenty, but these are just few good practices that you can practice if you want to produce a safe food. So eventually, I have just one line to say: when it comes to food safety, there is no room for complacency, and there's always a room for improvement, which we all shall strive for. Okay, so that's all for my presentation for today. Okay, now if you want to know more about the content of this webinar, or if you want to know in details, you're welcome to attend our courses. So Neon Polytechnic offers a few courses in the food safety. Okay, I'll introduce you one by one. One of the course is establishing shelf life of foods, where they will introduce you to the detection of pathogenic bacteria such as lactic acid bacteria. Okay, and there is a hands-on session. It's a one-day course. Okay, this involves both the lecture and the hands-on, and this course targets food manufacturing professionals who aim to predict the shelf life of their products, or even if they want to verify the shelf life of the products. Okay, so I'm one of the trainer for that course, so you can learn some microbiological testing skills here. And who should attend? Anyone from food industry can attend, or anyone even from the non-food industry who want to broaden their knowledge is welcome to attend this course. Okay, and here's the outline. So we cover the factors affecting the shelf life of foods, and it pays a lot of attention on the methodologies in designing shelf life studies, especially for the products that have very long shelf life. If your product with like 2 years long shelf life, right? You can't wait for 2 years. So this course teaches you how to achieve that in shorter time period. Okay, so a lot of case studies are there, and of course there is a hands-on session. Course is highly subsidized, actually very affordable. So maybe I will display this QR code for a while. So if you're interested to know more on the shelf life, you can actually scan the QR code and register your interest. Okay, the QR code is also available in the EDM that have been actually posted before by Dr. New. So you can register your interest there also. Move to the next course. This is on the microbiological food safety. This is a 3-day long course, and half the time we spend on the lecture, and half the time of this course is the hands-on session. Okay, so the course actually focus on ensuring food safety with the food safety management systems. Okay, there will be also the introduction of more pathogens in different food matrices, and along with that, you will be introduced to rapid microbiological testing techniques. Here you can bring your own sample also. So it's very exciting. You can bring your own sample and you can test how safe it is. Okay, and you can see the results. So here's a brief synopsis. We have the external speaker or external trainer on the food safety management system who is a food safety expert. Okay, so who should attend? Again, anyone from the food industry is welcome, especially if you're a food microbiologist or you're a food technologist, you are dealing with food safety and food quality issues. The course will be valuable to you. All right, so you can have a look at the course outline, or if you have the EDM, you can look at the outline in your free time. Again, it's highly subsidized, okay, and if you are interested, uh, you can register your interest here. So you can register your interest through the EDM also. That's all from me. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to type in the chat section, and if we cannot address the questions today, you are free to write at this email address. So please note down the email address that's shown here. We will try our best to address your queries.